Good afternoon, I'm Danielle Miller.
And I'm Tyrone Fisher. Thank you for watching Dillard University's first newscast of 2014. Dr. Celia is the 6th doctor and the 2nd American to die from the Ebola virus.
The deadly virus is still spreading out of control in West Africa. The death toll stands just over 5,400. WWT reporter Tamika Simmons tells us what the CDC is doing to put some folks' mind at ease. Tamika?
Thank you, Danielle. One local doctor says the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has a plan should someone contract the virus here in the United States. In the meantime, he says take comfort in the fact that the virus is not as easily transmittable as one might think. According to some, fear of getting the Ebola virus runs rampant, especially since 2 nurses contracted the deadly disease while treating a patient who died. Physician and surgeon Dwight McKenna explains that Ebola, named after the Ebola River in Africa, is not airborne and can only be contracted through bodily fluids. McKenna says if someone does have the virus, doctors know what to do.
Protocol is that first you identify them and then you get them in isolation as fast as you can, and then there are some experimental drugs out that they are using to try to suppress the virus so that it doesn't destroy the body's normal mechanism, and then hopefully the body's natural mechanisms will be able to be strong enough for the patient to survive.
The United States tries to put the citizens' minds at ease by notifying the public when someone returns from the Ebola-stricken region. Officials also want those who are traveling to these places to act cautiously. Kelsey Gates, a senior biology major at Dillard University, believes McKenna and isn't worried about contracting Ebola.
Not airborne, so you can go and travel any place you would like to, because where I'm from Atlanta, it was contacted in Atlanta. So my family's home, they haven't got Ebola, so it's not airborne. People can still travel or go in place. You just have to pretty much watch yourself.
There's been a few isolated cases here in the United States. Officials say they are working diligently to keep it that way. Ebola causes high fever and internal bleeding. The disease, which has a 21-day incubation period, spreads via bodily fluids, and the bodies of its victims can be contagious.
Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice's video of domestic violence against his then fiancée went viral. WWT reporter Gabrielle Ware talks with the victim, who recently attended a domestic violence rally called Take Back the Night. Gabrielle?
She says that video was God sent for obvious reasons. She hopes it will bring awareness and exposure to a chronic problem where women, children, and some men are assaulted daily.
It started when I was 11. And at the time, he was my stepdad, and he raped me until I was 14.
At least 1 out of every 3 women worldwide have been a victim of sexual violence. Out of these crimes, less than 50% of cases are reported to police. Victims of sexual assault feel it's time to make a change.
It can happen to anybody. It doesn't have to be a specific person, a specific ethnicity. It just happens. And so when it does, you feel like you need somebody to be there for you.
Students from local universities march to raise awareness against sexual violence and give survivors the power to take back the night.
Organizers and supporters say Take Back the Night serves as a call to end sexual and gender-based violence. Take Back the Night empowers survivors, helps the survivors, and allows their loved ones to heal.
I've never really been a victim of domestic violence, but I knew people that have been. And for someone just to hear that they can do it, the courage, and give them courage to say whatever they need to say to help them out of their situation and to give them motivation and let them know that they're not the only one, I feel like that would be very beneficial to women, because it happens to you and you feel like you're the only one, and that's not the case.
The chants from the crowd feels relevant to the point supporters are trying to get across. People from all walks of life are coming together to shatter the silence and to stop the violence.
Dillard partners with Loyola and Tulane Universities for the Crescent City's Take Back the Night. More than 600 participants marched down St. Charles Avenue and ended at Tulane's campus, where survivors shared their stories.
An ex-wife who recently got out of an abusive marriage told me that when it comes to men killing women, Louisiana ranks in the top 5. She says it is an alarming statistic that has local counselors scrambling to stop violence and save lives.
We were very involved in our church. He had a great job. I had a great job. We just were the ideal couple. Everybody liked us, but at home, it was terrible.
The signs, the symbols, the indicators of domestic violence can be very subtle or very overt. A 28-year-old survivor shares her experience about domestic violence. While her marriage seemed like a fairy tale, it quickly escalated into a nightmare.
The first thing was just a push out of the way, but the next day it was a headbutt and a spit in the face, and the next day was choking me, and the next day, so it started to escalate till where I had the shotgun in my face.
Statistics show that nationally, Louisiana ranks 4th in male-on-female homicide as a result of domestic violence. Despite this staggering statistic, there are outreach programs in the state that provide services to victims of domestic violence. The Metropolitan Center for Women and Children and the Family Justice Center are safe havens for victims whose lives and spirits need repairing.
We tried to make it as homey and as natural and comfortable a situation as possible for them. But the ladies get up and they work together in the kitchen to get breakfast. If the children need to go to school, they get their children off to school. They wait for their children at the bus stop just like any other mom and the kids that come home from school. And then twice a week they have support group in the evening. So they'll come to group in the evening while their children go to play group.
Experts say that 10 to 15% of men are battered by a woman, and some are in same-sex relationships. The problem surrounding domestic violence stems from the need to have power and control, and the best prevention is awareness. The Louisiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence has a 24-hour hotline for anyone needing assistance. The number is 888-411-1333, or call the Domestic Family Justice Center in New Orleans at 658-6780.
The city of New Orleans says it's time for the homeless to go from under the Pontchartrain Expressway.
And that means many will have to find a place to come up. Members of the homeless says going to a shelter may not be an option.
Plus, the Dillard community is mourning the loss of one of its own, Renee Darby. The city of New Orleans says it's time for the homeless to leave their encampment from under the Pontchartrain Expressway. WWL-TV reporter AJ Richardson talked to some who says the city's vacate orders are insensitive and their actions are driven by greed.
Some of the homeless say city officials feel as though their presence is not a good look for the city and bad for business, especially tourism. The city has given them an ultimatum and they don't like it.
New Orleans City Council forces the homeless off of the streets in downtown New Orleans. They have two options: risk going to jail or stay at a shelter. However, some say they don't like either choice.
It's too hot to be inside that New Orleans mission. It is not one big, huge main building that they keep air conditioning. It is not, they have no food in that facility. You still leave hungry.
When everything goes down and the sun goes down and it gets dark, I go get my cardboard and this is where I sleep because I'd rather sleep over here, than go inside one of the missions or one of the shelters and be treated, I say, terrible.
It was a unanimous decision by Orleans City Council to move the homeless off of the streets. The city and nonprofit organizations offer temporary housing and some local shelters. However, many of the homeless say there's not enough space.
The director of New Orleans Women's Mission, Mildred Walker, says they're doing all they can to accommodate every homeless person that comes through their doors.
We are to the fullest capacity, and that's the max we could take. But even though people come in off the street and they just in need of a dinner, a shower, or something, we're able to provide those basic needs. If they're in need of clothing, we provide clothing. If they're in need of food, we provide food. If they're in need of a place to stay and we have a bed available, we'll also accept them.
One expert says New Orleans has the highest rate of chronic homelessness in the country. Some say council members have come up with a temporary solution to a never-ending problem.
And the people are not leaving because we don't have anywhere to go.
Opponents of the new measure, including District E Councilman James Gray, say it's unfair. He says it targets the homeless while the city has not provided a framework for supporting them, and it doesn't provide a means of enforcement. Nevertheless, city officials have urged homeless people to connect with available resources through its Interagency Council on Homelessness.
For the first time in years, Dillard University students, faculty, and staff did not get hard copies of the college newspaper, The Kubion. WWT reporter Ayanna Humphrey caught up with the faculty advisor to find out why. Ayanna?
It has to do with funding and the First Amendment. The Student Government Association finances the newspaper, and the Mass Communications Department produces it. Neither side could agree on how should it be produced, leaving the university caught in the middle. The staff of Dillard University's newspaper, The Kubion, struggles to print a paper because the Student Government Association refuses to finance it unless a compromise can be reached between them and the Kubion advisor.
The problem is that the SGA wants to mandate certain activities must be covered, and we try to cover everything of importance on campus, including SGA activities, but we cannot agree to a mandate because that's an abrogation of the First Amendment.
Students that work for the Kubion student newspaper are confined to these small spaces and have yet to receive funding to publish the paper and edit photos. This issue has caused a stir amongst participants. The cost to fund the student media is $10,000, and it is split between the newspaper and radio station WDUB. With SGA refusing to pay, students cannot print a newspaper and in the coming weeks won't be able to broadcast because of the failure to pay broadcasting fees. When asked for an interview, members of the Student Government Association had no comment. The next edition of the Kubion is due out soon. Like before, readers can view it online until SGA and the student newspaper staff can resolve their differences.
We begin this segment with the terrible tragedy of one of Dillard University students.
Renee Darby, a promising student, appeared to have everything going for him, but something went terribly wrong. WDUT reporter Gavin Meyer joins us with more. Gavin?
Students who knew Renee Darby say he was a funny guy who loved to dress. However, he took his life, leaving those behind him who loved him wondering why.
Darby, let's say it again.
Renee Darby.
And because of us calling his name, and every time we call his name, his spirit, he lives and he walks on this campus.
Dillard University saw the unfortunate loss of one of their students this past week, and it has hit the DU family out of nowhere.
Very sad every time we lose anyone at Dillard because we are a family, and it's like I lost my brother. And I would want us to come together as a team in a community to help one another.
Dr. Walter Kimbrough and Interim Chaplain Reverend Salisbury have come together to pool their resources in this time of mourning. Student support service offices, the chapel, and the prayer room are open to students if they need any counseling.
Dillard has made sure they offer comfort to students, whether it be in a counseling session or just a casual conversation.
Allow the student body to come together and be able to discuss and talk and be able to share their emotions, have a space where they can actually dialogue about what they're feeling.
Even though the passing of Renee is still quite shocking, the DU family has come together and have a plan of action to make sure incidents like this never happen again.
Darby's family say they encourage everyone to pay close attention to family and friends, and if there are any signs of symptoms or of suicide, get help immediately. They say they don't want another family to experience the hurt and pain they feel.
Stay with us, folks. Find out what Dillard alum is training for the Olympics. And how does a Dillard triple athlete maintain a 3.5 GPA? Those stories are next.
Being a college athlete can be demanding. Add the stress of classes, research papers, and tests in the mix, it can be a bit overwhelming. But one Dillard triple athlete says she knows how to strike a balance, keeping her A game in the classroom and on the court.
I live for competition. It makes my life complete.
Keelantra Taylor is a Dillard University triple sport athlete who participates in volleyball, basketball, and track. In spite of a hectic schedule, this physics major maintains well above a 3.5 GPA. She says it's her mindset that keeps her on top, on and off the court.
I have a high level of competitiveness, and since I was younger, track was my first sport that I started. I was a thrower, and then as I began middle school, I started opening up my interest in other things, and that's when I started volleyball. And then right after that, I mean, I had the height for basketball, so why not do that?
History shows that Dillard University is known for its athletes succeeding academically while maintaining high grade point averages throughout the whole Gulf Coast Atlantic Conference. The Lady Blue Devils basketball team was number 21 in the top 25 Women's Basketball College Association academic honor roll for the 2013 to 2014 season. Taylor was included in that number.
She's definitely set a model of what it means to be a true scholar athlete. She's been able to manage her time. I mean, having two sports that overlap, like volleyball and basketball, that's got to be tough. But I think that she has done a good job of being able to manage her time, and that's something that she could share with other student athletes who may want to consider going that route of being a double sport athlete and want to still maintain their academic piece.
Taylor finished the spring of 2014 with a 4.0. She also placed third in throwing the disc at the track and field Gulf Coast Athletic Conference track meet.
Dillard alum Emory Nash ran track while he was a student. He says he never thought he'd be coaching track at his alma mater, let alone training for the Olympics. But he tells WWL-TV reporter Tyrone Fisher that his future looks bright.
Dillard alum and now assistant track coach Emory Nash, a distance runner, trains himself for the Olympics and also trains others. He explains